Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue our NFL predictions with Week 2. And last week, I did pretty good, 10 and 6, but I know I could do better. But I noticed that last week, usually Week 1 has a lot of upsets. But in my terms, the definition of upsets, I didn't see much. But I digress. Let's not waste time. Let's jump right into Thursday Night Football. The first Thursday Night Football game of the season, where the Commanders will be taking on the Green Bay Packers. Commanders getting a win over the New York Giants. I know the score did not look like it was pretty, but I think that scoreboard for that game did not indicate that Washington blew them out really badly. Meanwhile, Green Bay, they made a statement against the Detroit Lions. And it was a game that the offense looked good, defense looked energized. Probably had to do with that Michael Parsons signing, but yeah, I think Green Bay they put the NFL on notice, and with this being at home, whiteout game, Thursday night football, I'm gonna take the Green Bay Packers to win. And next we have the Battle of the Cats, where the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Jaguars getting a win over the Carolina Panthers, another Cat team, while the Cincinnati Bengals, yeah, they got the win over the Cleveland Browns, but they did not look that great. Again, it takes a few weeks for the Bengals to get into peak form, and we all know this. And with this game being played in Cincinnati, it has me wondering. Hopefully, Jamar Chase he could do more better than 2 catches and derailing my fantasy hopes for Week 1. But I'm still gonna take the Bengals to win this game. I do think they could do enough to win, but Jacksonville, I'm not gonna count them out. Don't count them out. And we have an NFC East matchup between the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. Giants. Yeah, things did not look good for you guys. Yet again, the third opening day game in a row where not only the Giants lose, but they fail to score a touchdown. And once again, the Giants look like the worst team in the league. And after all that defensive investments, offense, Russell Wilson, he struggled in this particular game. And Malik Neighbors, he was growing very, very frustrated. And they're taking on a pretty frustrated Dallas Cowboy team where I feel like there were several opportunities for them to win that game. I think they had a shot of beating the Eagles week 1, but I guess they just couldn't make the play. Or CD Hands, he might have dipped his hands in a buttered popcorn bag before the game where he couldn't catch the ball. Yeah, I think that might have happened for CD Lamb. Luckily, the next day, he spent pretty much the entire day by himself with the jug machine. True story. In this game being played in Dallas, and knowing that Dak Prescott usually owns the New York Giants, I think this theory carries over in this one. Even when he wasn't playing, the Cowboys just always know to beat the New York Giants. And with that takes us to an NFC North matchup where the Chicago Bears take on the Detroit Lions in the battle of Ben Johnson as he returns to Detroit. And speaking of Ben Johnson, his debut started off strong. Sadly, it did not end that way as they wound up losing to the Minnesota Vikings after blowing a 17-6 lead heading into the fourth quarter. But they'll be taking on the Detroit Lions, which they just looked out of whack week 1. They could not get anything going against their division rival Green Bay Packers. And many people think Detroit, they might have missed their window of opportunity to get over the hump. This game could look like a bounce back game for Detroit. I, but the question is, who knows who best? Does Ben Johnson know the Lions best, or the Lions know Ben Johnson best? Well, this game we're gonna find out that this game and their second matchup they'll play later on in the season. And with this being played at home in Detroit, I'm gonna go ahead and take the Lions to win this game. But if the Bears win and the Lions starts off 0-2, they better. I think the panic signs will be raining in Detroit. And that comes especially on who they have week 3. But we'll exercise that demon when we get there. And that leads us right into the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Tennessee Titans. Rams got a low scoring victory over the Houston Texans. And while the Rams didn't look flashy, they did get the job done, taking on the Tennessee Titans in Cam Ward's home opener. Hopefully he could find the end zone. And last week pretty much showed everyone the same thing, that the Tennessee Titans fired the wrong person. They fired last season they fired the general manager and not Bill Callahan, or not whoever's the coach of the Tennessee Titans. Callahan, I think is his last name. This game showed his coaching incompetence. Last week against the Broncos, what they lost, showed his coaching incompetence. And with this game, even though this game's being played in Tennessee, I just like the Rams better. I think they're more well put together. They're a veteran bunch. Titans, they're a young team outside of maybe a few players. But the Rams, I just think they're the better team in this one. I'm going to go with them to win. Takes us right into the AFC East matchup between the New England Patriots taking on the Miami Dolphins. Patriots, hard-fought loss against the Las Vegas Raiders. And while the Miami Dolphins, what was that, Miami? Seriously, what was that? 8 points with an offense that has Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, Tua Tagovailoa. They already pretty much look like what they usually look like in December. Frozen, out of whack, uninspired. And I know the Dolphins don't have a defense, as it was been reported that they don't even have corners for their team. But who cares? Fortunately, they're playing at home, and New England, this is their New England Sun Life Stadium, Hard Rock Stadium, whatever you call it, has been the equivalent of hell for the New England Patriots, especially the last 10 years or so. So therefore, I'm actually kind of back and forth with this one. But Dolphins being at home, I'm going to lean slightly towards the Dolphins. But the Dolphins lose this game, I'm probably not going to pick them to win anymore in my predictions. And I'm probably telling a big fat lie just right then and there. And then we have the 49ers taking on the New Orleans Saints. The 49ers, it's happening again. Yes, they beat the Seattle Seahawks, but injuries. Why can't this team stay healthy? Whoever's been running the strength and conditioning for the 49ers for the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years needs to be fired, burned into the sun, and retracted of all powers. Every single year is injury after injury after injury. Because this week, Brock Purdy is not expected to be playing. That's why the spread is a little closer than you think. George Kittle, he's out for 4 weeks with a hamstring. Not to mention McCaffrey's been battling a calf issue late last week, but he looked fine and normal. And also Brandon Ayuk, he ain't going to be back to week 7. Why can't this team stay healthy? But then at least the defense look back to normal. New Orleans Saints, they look better than, as for the Saints, they looked better than what people indicated. I do think the Saints are going to win. I think they're going to win a few games. They're going to be a thorn on people's side for this season. And even though the 49ers might be starting Mac Jones in this one, if they rely on Christian McCaffrey just enough, I think the 49ers win. I expect this game to be pretty ugly. Don't expect a lot of points in this one. But I think the 49ers could do just enough to get the job done. And we have another AFC East matchup where the Buffalo Bills take on the New York Jets. The Bills were pretty much dead for the first 56 minutes. But the last 4 minutes, they just put a Ralph Wilson Stadium miracle, 15 unanswered, and a nerd-carrying fumble. All help the Bills stun the Baltimore Ravens. And they'll be taking on the New York Jets, who another team that looks better than expected. Sure, they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they had too many penalties, but the running game got going. Breece Hall looked like he's the guy. Justin Fields, he played extremely well. Everyone was walked. I know the Jets lost that game, but I think most of the players they walked out of that stadium with their heads held high, except for the defense. But I digress. Well, even though this game being played in New York and Buffalo, they look like the better team. I'm gonna go upset. I think the Jets gonna get the win because the one thing I noticed that the Bills struggled with last week, even though they were down 40-25, Derrick Henry ran all over them last week, and they're dealing with the running quarterback like Lamar Jackson last week. This week they're gonna be dealing with a running quarterback in Justin Fields and a running back named Breece Hall. If they can't stop those two, it might be a long day for Buffalo. I'm taking the Jets to win. And then we have the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. DK Metcalf, could he get his revenge? Maybe. Well, Seattle had a tough loss against the 49ers, while the Pittsburgh Steelers used a Chris Boswell field goal to get the win over the New York Jets. Also, a Jalen Ramsey perfect time stop helped as well. Just like the Steelers, even when they try to lose, they win. And even when they try to win, they still win. They just know how to win games. And with this game being Aaron Rodgers' home debut for the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though last week he turned the clock back on himself. While I'm sure the running game couldn't get things going, but they got time. They got all season for that. It might but I know if they don't get it going at all, it will hurt them this season. 9-8 is still a possibility. I'm taking the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this game, and I'll expect DK Metcalf to score a touchdown. And we have the AFC North matchup between the Cleveland Browns taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Browns losing by 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals, while the Ravens, I think the myth is true about the Ravens. And I've said this before about them in years past, but I'll say it again. The only team that could beat the Ravens is the Ravens. And this week was no different. They had a 40-25 point lead with 4 minutes to go. And they blew it. And Derrick Henry fumbling really shifted the momentum there. The goal is to show you that if a team is within striking distance with the Ravens with like minutes to play, Ravens will fold. Fortunately, they're favored by double digits against the Browns. They cannot afford to fold in this one. I got them winning pretty soundly over the Cleveland Browns. And then we got a pretty interesting matchup between the Denver Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts. Broncos won a low-scoring game against the Titans. That defense is, as advertised, stellar. While the Indianapolis Colts, okay, I did not see that coming. Daniel Jones playing good football, possible comeback player of the year. All right, too early for that. But he played well, and the Colts defense also played well against what was supposed to have been a high-powered offense in the Miami Dolphins. Now this one could go in any direction. I know the Broncos looked a little sloppy on offense, but I do think they could get it done here. I'm going to go ahead and take the Broncos to win this game. But don't be surprised if the Colts pull off an upset. And then we have the Carolina Panthers taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Panthers, yeah, they did not look good at all. And I know they missed their offensive tackle Ike Ekwonu, as I think he had an appendectomy that week. Probably going to come back either this week or next. They sorely missed him. And as for the Panther defense, outside of a short field that was caused by a Bryce Young interception in that one long run that they gave up, felt like the defense, they might have been, but they didn't break. So, improvement. But the Arizona Cardinals, they did get the win. While they made it look a little harder than it seems, I they did manage to get it done, and that's the name of the game. And with this game being played in Arizona, home opener, I'm taking the Cardinals to win this game. Hopefully, the Panthers play better this week than they did last week. And now we have Sunday Night Football between the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Falcons falconed, which they blew it against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Younghoe Koo, who was mostly a reliable kicker, missed a potential game-time field goal, which cost them the game. While the Minnesota Vikings had an ugly first 3 quarters until the fourth quarter came and they just turned it on. And while JJ McCarthy pretty much looked like a rookie, even though he's a second-year player, I feel like once he gets those reps going, he could find himself. This was the definition of getting your feet wet game. But I digress. This game being played in Minnesota, I kind of wanted to pick the Vikings, but I'm going to have to go with my second upset of the season. I think the Falcons will go on the road and get the win. Hopefully they remember to run the ball, and the skill position players for the Falcons can make plays against this Viking defense. But again, this one I think could go in any direction. And then we have the first of two Monday Night Football games. First one being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Houston Texans. Buccaneers, as I mentioned with the Falcons last week, they came from behind, got the win. Emeka Egbuka, he looked extremely good for a rookie. Meanwhile, the Houston Texans, yeah, they did not find the end zone last week. Lost to the Los Angeles Rams, and the offensive line is still bad. And that's a problem. Because they're going up against a Tampa Bay defense that does specialize in defense, even though they had an okay at best showing. Now, I remember last time these two teams played 2 years ago, it was a shootout. And the Texans are favored at home. I'm actually kind of surprised about that. But I did not like how the Texans played last week. And given that I'm a little higher on the Bucks, I'm going to go ahead and take Tampa Bay to win this game. But don't feel bad, Houston. I do think they do have. I'm not saying. I'll say this. Houston does have a shot, though. I'll give them that much and nothing else. In the other Monday night game, which is going to be the Monday night after dark game, I've missed those back in the day. We have the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Almost said Oakland. Chargers beating the Chiefs in Brazil. It almost looked pitched perfect in some ways. And they, for once, the Chargers didn't chargered. Although that Tart guy, he better hide from the Swifties if he knows what's best. Meanwhile, for the Raiders, it might not have looked pretty on paper, but they had an impressive win on the road against New England. And I know this game's going to be played in Las Vegas. I like the Chargers a little better. I do think they are the better team in this situation. I'm going to take the Chargers to win this game. And finally, our game of the week. A rematch of a game that I'd rather not relive. The Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The winners of the last couple of Super Bowls. Now, the Eagles got it done against the Cowboys. It wasn't pretty. Again, they'll get in sync. They're not in peak form yet. Hopefully, A.J. Brown has more than one target. And they'll be taking on the Chiefs team that has actually coming off a loss against the Los Angeles Chargers. I wouldn't say the Chiefs played bad. I feel like the Chargers just played a better game than them. And it's a game that I hope ends in a tie. I don't care who wins. Just tie. Because right now, I don't like either team. You already know I'm not a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Chiefs, I'm just tired of them. I think we all are. And you know what? But if I had to choose a winner for this one, I'm just gonna go with the team that I hate the least between the two. I think the Chiefs are gonna be a little desperate. I'm gonna give them the win because if they go to 0-2, they'll panic. If the Eagles go 2-0, they're gonna feel superior of themselves. I just want to end this video right here. Let's end it right here. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Gamble safely. I'll see you next time. Hope these teams tie.